Hello, everybody. How are you doing? Here at the discussion. I don't have any guests today, but I did thought I would kind of cover something that I had been discussing with a Christian a few days ago, and the whole thing was the Christian was saying that basically there are no atheists, right? Because we're suppressing the truth in unrighteousness, right? And so I thought, it's kind of ironic because um, I think I know what I believe and I don't believe, right? Like, I believe my mom exists. I believe I exist. I believe my friends exist. I don't necessarily believe that the Christian God exists because there's no interaction in the same way that I interact with, say, my mom and my friends and my loved ones and even myself. So I know those things exist, but this God thing seems to be imaginary. This Christian God definition is imaginary, right? And so it seems to be the other way around. I got to thinking, and I let them know that actually there are no theists because theists doubt the existence of God and they pray for more faith. And I've heard it all my life. I've used to go to church all the time, and it's always an issue, to doubt. And but the thing is, I never doubt that my mom exists. And yet Christians also say they have a personal relationship with this God, with Jesus. Thing is, though, if you have a personal relationship with someone, then how in the hell are you going to be doubting whether that motherfucker exists or not, right? Like, come on, man. By the way, happy Kwanzaa, everybody. Um, but yeah, it's just really weird that someone would say that I'm a theist when I doubt that they're God, or yeah, that I'm actually a theist when I doubt that that God, whatever the God means, actually exists. Doesn't seem to make sense. It seems to be the other way around. So I went and looked it up, man. I found a little video where we're going to kind of break this down. We have um, a preacher, an apologist, who is going to be telling us that doubt is part of being a Christian. And so we're going to kind of dissect this and kind of go over what I mean.
News is in that place where we're fighting doubt, this spot where we're like, unbelief, this spot where we're going, I believe, but I'm struggling to hang on to that belief, that God steps into that space, and that faith is that mustard seed of faith that puts the Lord to work in our lives. Look at me. I don't know what version of Christianity you've bought into, but there's really only one biblical version of it. And let me catch you up on just a little bit of that.
Okay.
The little bit of that you really need to embrace and know is there's not a day coming where you're not going to have to wrestle with your flesh and get to this place where trials will not eventually wear you down to the point of wrestling with doubt. At least it.
Look, if bad things happen to me at work, let's say I'm on the job and my boss is giving me a hard time or I'm having struggles at work, that doesn't mean I don't, that doesn't, wouldn't necessarily mean that I doubt that my boss exists or that my job exists, right? Like, what does that have to do with it? Um, what kind of doubt is he talking about? I think he's talking about the doubt, or there's also doubts that God even exists. But how could that happen if you have a personal relationship with Jesus? You know he exists, and they tell you that. They say, I know God exists just like I know my hand exists, or that I know that anything else exists. That's bullshit. Because why would you doubt the existence? What does you going through hard times have to do with it?
This level, all right? Life has a way of pounding on you in a Genesis 3 world, and you shouldn't feel guilt or shame about wrestling with doubt. Jesus healed his son. He cast out the demon. This brother was like, if you can. And then Jesus was like, if I can. I can do anything for someone who believes. I believe, but help my unbelief. I believe, but I don't believe. Okay, boom, healed him. Let that encourage you.
Yeah, but they knew Jesus existed because he was standing right there in front of them. The fuck are you talking about?
Moping around about, I just struggle. Yeah. Who told you you wouldn't? Like, where did you get that? Of course you do. But God honors the fight. The double-minded man is the man who's like, he's not going to work. He's not going to help me. He's not going to. You're not even crying out to God for help because you believe that he won't help you. That's the double-minded man, giving lip service to God, pretending to be all put together when you're not. What do you feel like your testimony is? Be doing great, nailing it. Yeah, marriage is a train wreck. Well, we're fine.
So he's talking about people who know God exists, but they don't believe he can help them. But what I'm talking about is struggling with whether God exists at all. That seems to be what I struggled with and what I know a lot of Christians talk about. Yeah, sometimes I struggle with, whether God exists, but then I go back to the arguments. I don't need an argument to know that my mom exists, right? That doesn't make any sense.
House on fire behind you like a Denzel Washington movie. It's fine. Don't worry about it. What's that? Oh, don't worry about it. Now we'll put that out. We're good. Good. Matt was funny today, wasn't he? He was so funny. I love that guy. Stop. You got to quit pretending.
Yeah, so again, Christians, doubting is part of the journey, right? It's part of the struggle. And this really goes for any theist, really, any religion. Whether you're a Muslim or, you know, um, some other religion that worships some god or gods. Gods. But the thing is, you shouldn't have a doubt whether those things exist. And I would just make the argument that there are no true Christians then. There are no true Muslims if you're doubting whether Allah or Yahweh or Jesus actually exists. If you have those sort of doubts, you don't believe in it. You don't. You don't believe in your God. You don't. And so I'll say, just like the Christian charged me of, that I really believe in God. And I'm just saying with my mouth that I don't. I'll just make the charge right back at you. You actually don't believe in God, and you're just paying it lip service. Now, why would Christians do that? Why do religious people say any of the bullshit that they say? It's so that they can look good towards others. I think it's more of a moral virtue signal. It just sounds good to say, oh, I believe in Jesus. I love Jesus. Now, I have my doubts at times. We all do. It's part of it. But that's why we have to pray for faith. You don't need to do that when it comes to believing in anything else in this world. Why is God different? Why should that be any different? It's because you don't have evidence as you do for your mom or your brother or your sister or your children. You don't. You don't need to pray for faith whether they exist or not. You don't need to read philosophical books to talk about how they are ontologically entities and they actually do exist. No, you already know that. Unless you're fucking dumb. If you're fucking stupid or crazy, maybe you're mentally ill, yeah, you'll have doubts whether you exist. It's called what, schizophrenia or something like that? Some sort of weird mental issue. Like other people don't exist. I think we all know that we exist and we all can infer that other people exist. We don't even talk about it as an inference. We talk about we know other people exist? Do you know your wife exists? How would your wife feel if you said, I just struggle with doubt sometime, honey, whether you exist or not? Really? But it's so funny how the Christians will turn it around and will attack the unbeliever or the skeptic or those who aren't convinced that, oh, I have a relationship with, I don't have a belief. My belief is not a religion. I have a relationship with God. You hear that shit? I have a relationship with the Lord. No, you have a relationship with your imagination. And you just want to sound good to others because you want to feel superior to others. Argue with these people because they're full of shit and they're out here trying to convince me that I should stop my denial and just admit that I too believe in their God. I don't. So go fuck yourself. That's what they don't understand. Like, I can turn that same shit around on them and let them know that actually, no, sir. If you struggle with doubt, like this pastor was saying, everybody struggles with doubt. Everybody struggles with doubt when it comes to God and religion. But then, you'll have someone will say, well, that's not the same. Doubt and faith are paramount to the human condition in whatever regard you choose to apply them. Few things are more dangerous than a man without either. And all this kind of shit. So are you saying that you doubt the existence of your mom? And then they'll say, no, I don't doubt them because that's different. They exist. But you claim that God exists. So what's the difference? Well, because doubt is indivorceable from the human experience. An unquestioned conviction is dogma, not an earnestly held belief. But do you apply that logic to belief in your mom? No, of course not. Because these are two different categories. That's the whole point. And that should at least let the Christian know why an atheist is who they are. They're two different categories, right? I can see my mom, talk to my mom, have a relationship with my mom. She exists. I couldn't have been born without her. But then they'll say, yeah, but without God, nobody would exist. Nothing would exist. How do you know that? Because the world couldn't have come from nothing. Okay, sure. I'm not a nothing person. There are nothing people out here. It's actually the Christians who are nothing people. They're the ones who say God created things not out of existing things, but they created it out of nothing. Like magic. Like FM. Fucking magic. Right? Yeah, because God always existed. The universe or the cosmos couldn't have always existed. They special plead for God. God is that special concept. They just define it that way. They just define God as, well, I define God as that thing that always exists and that which everything is contingent on. You're just defining shit into existence, but only in your own fucking dumb, stupid mind. We know the universe exists, and we know the universe has a lot of unknowns about it. And we know that logically, something cannot come from nothing. So it stands to reason that the universe or the cosmos or some unknown part of the universe should be the thing that everything is contingent on, right? Reality, some part of reality we don't know about. They call that part of reality God. That's fine. You can call it, I'll call it God too. But the difference is this God, all it has to do is be the thing that from which everything emerged from. All these other properties, like all loving, personal, caring, answers prayers, destroys the Philistines, destroys the Canaanites, flooded the world, sent his son to die for your sins, and then the whole creation story, which that was based on. All of that are extra properties. Those are extras. Those things are not necessary. And so with my epistemology, I make as few assumptions as possible. Why would I do that? Because when you start making assumption after assumption after assumption, at any point, those assumptions could be wrong, and then your whole worldview collapses. It falls in on itself. It's all based on assumptions. You don't know anything. You just have this really neat idea that makes sense internally. A lot of things can fucking make sense internally. Doesn't mean that it translates to reality. There are a lot of models for how the world or the universe could have come about, right? Could have come about through a multiverse that is eternal. Could have come about because the universe is going through a cycle of birth and rebirth, kind of like the, as it's spoken of in, you know, Hindu religions, for example. And science, by the way, I think it's called the cyclical universe theory or model hypothesis. Roger Penrose. Could be some kind of quantum foam, like this little bottom existence from which everything that we observe springs from. I mean, there's all kinds of ideas, but it's all fucking imaginary until it's proven, which is fine. You can have your model, just don't call it the absolute truth, which the Christians do. And so it's a little disingenuous to say, you know, that, oh, my model is infallible. It's based on a book that's real old. So they appeal to the old book. My book's 4,000 years old, so it's got to be true. Really? Or it's the biggest religion in the world and the Bible has survived over thousands and thousands of years. Well, Islam is not far behind Christianity. What if, and you know, Islam is a growing religion. Suppose one day Islam becomes the number one religion forever and ever. Does that make Islam true? You would deny that, right? You'd say, oh, it's a ad populum fallacy or some shit. Bullshit. Go fuck yourself, man. Go fuck yourself and take that shit to the kitty table, man. That's not logical. It's a big leap of faith. And it's fine to have your own faith. It's fine. But at least be real about it. It's a faith. And by definition, you don't need faith in things you know to be true. You don't need faith that your mom exists. You need faith that Jesus is sitting in heaven on some throne getting ready to judge the world, even though it's been 2,000 years and we ain't heard shit from the motherfucker, but that's a different story, right? Whole fucking different story. Oh, he's just being patient with mankind. Really? How convenient. How fucking convenient. It's, you know, this is why we have wars. This is why we have all the bullshit we do, is because people don't think for themselves and they just love to rattle on what other people say, like this preacher or some apologist who only exists to help the believers and the faithful not feel stupid. Because they know that these beliefs are stupid. They know they sound stupid, but they're emotionally committed to the idea for one reason or the other. Maybe they were raised in the shit. Maybe there's societal pressures for the shit. Maybe they have a family who's counting on them to be the family head in that Christian hierarchy. You know how it goes. The head of every man is the church, and the head of the church is Christ, and he's the head of the woman, and blah, 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 blah. The patriarchal hierarchy. Maybe he's committed to that. Or maybe it just sounds good to say, I'm a believer, I believe. If you don't believe in something, you'll fall for anything, right? Well, you've just fallen for anything. If you believe, if you, and you're lying to yourself because you actually don't fall for it. Actually, I am really convinced that Christians don't believe that shit. I mean, not most of them. I think some are willing to die for it. Because let's face it, if they really believed in this shit, they'd be ready to die so they can go to heaven. But they know they can't kill themselves because they've got some Christian tradition that says you shouldn't commit suicide because your work is here on earth and blah, 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 blah. Cop out. Cop out. Guarantee you these motherfuckers will not die for this shit that they don't really believe in. And I know they don't believe in it because they do all the bad shit that everybody else does. That's why the prisons are mainly made up of Christians. You don't hardly see any atheists in prison. Or actually, maybe you do. Maybe that's my point. They just say they're Christians. They're not Christians. They're just like you and me. They just talk a big game. That's what Christians do. And it's just not for those in prison. It's for everybody. And when people do good, it's because they're good people at heart. If they weren't good people at heart, they'd be doing bad shit. How many examples do we have of so-called Christians that do horrible things like rip people off for their money? So that, even religious leaders rip people off for their money so they can afford these big private jets and luxurious lifestyle. Do they really believe the bullshit that they're teaching? I don't think so. I think that they're hypocrites. They're all hypocrites. The world is made up of a lot of hypocrites because humans know how to manipulate people in society and to get what they want. Look at the left wokest, progressive, extreme progressive liberal people on the politics. Bunch of hypocrites. Look at it now with the sanctuary cities. They're all mad now in Chicago because all these illegals are coming into their town. Well, a lot of these Democrats were the same ones that were saying, well, we have to feel sorry for them so that we can actually be more humane. Now that it's okay when it's Texas or Florida or something. Not okay when it's in their backyard. Not in my backyard, like George Carlin used to say. These little fucking hypocrites, not in my backyard, because they don't really believe that shit. They just want to sound virtuous. It's called virtue signaling. Everyone does it, whether you're in religion, politics, whatever. People do that shit because it's the way you get shit that you want, by manipulating folks. And you think that I'm supposed to fall for you because you invoke this spooky term called God and Yahweh and Jesus? No, fuck that. Fuck you. I'm not for it, man. It's time for you to wake up. It's time to wake the fuck up, grow the fuck up, and start using your fucking head. These people aren't stupid. I don't think Christians are stupid at all. I just think they're liars. I think they're suppressing how they really feel because they need to sound good. That's all it really is to me. For me, I don't assume they're dumb. I don't assume they're illogical or uneducated. They just refuse to engage with the facts because they want to hold up this moral, virtuous fucking signal. Believe in God. Believe in Jesus. Whatever the fuck that means. If you're a progressive Christian, that could mean anything. Oh, you don't have to believe in the creation story as a literal story. What's really important is that you believe in Jesus. The fuck does that mean? That he died and raised from? Well, maybe he didn't really physically die. It's a spiritual death. It was an ego death. He's trying to teach you whatever. I don't need that story to know that. In fact, religion is all about ego. That's where religion is not very spiritual at all. And I would say actually atheism is the first step to a real spiritual life. And I say that because the first thing, for one of the big premises of a spiritual life, according to some versions of spirituality, which I subscribe to, and I wouldn't even call it spiritual. I just call it like a psychological way to understand yourself and achieve peace of mind. Really, that's what spirituality is all about, or it entails that. The principle of letting go. Let go of beliefs that don't serve you anymore. Let go of things that are of limitation, cognitive dissonance, and suffering, like the Buddhists say. Yeah, man. These beliefs, or you're lying, saying that you believe in things you really don't, causes cognitive dissonance. And this is why they get so triggered and they argue on the internet all day about the concept. I don't care if you're a Zoroastrian or a Christian or who you claim to be, what title, what version of it you've been raised in or that you relate to as the best way. Some people pick certain religions because it makes them look, well, let's just say, makes them look really wise. Oh, I'm not a Christian. I'm something else, more special than that, something more esoteric. They don't believe it. They don't. They don't because they struggle with doubt. That's the whole thing. If you talk to them, they'll even tell you, yeah, we all struggle with doubt. As an imperfect person, I struggle with my doubt to believe that God exists and that he made this world for us. When I look at all the evils in the world, but then I have to go to scripture or remind myself or go into prayer and talk to, authorities or whatever the case is to help me build my faith back up. That's just an excuse. You're trying to have it two ways. You don't doubt things that you know exist. You just don't. If you do, you really don't believe. You may believe sometimes. Maybe you're fucking I remember when I was a Christian, I sort of sincerely felt like I believed, but then I would always fall back into doubt until finally I just realized, you know what? I don't believe in this shit. I'm just trying to force myself to believe in this bullshit. And before you guys go on to talk about atheists, well, atheists believe too. No, atheism is actually a non belief in God or a disbelief. You don't, and I don't even know if I call myself, um, I just don't like labels, right? I am an atheist because obviously I don't believe. Um, at least the Christian God and the Abrahamic gods and stuff like that. Anything else I don't know. But I know that the Christian God, the way they define it, most people have defined it. I know that can't exist. I know it. I know it cannot exist. Why? Because it entails contradictions. An omni God is a contradiction. You can't be all powerful, all knowing, and all loving. Just let's take those three things, right? If you're all loving, that means you want nothing but loving things, benevolent things, things that are positive and good. If you're all powerful, that means you can make that happen. You can create a universe where that all happens. And yet, here we are in this evil world with these evil fucking Christians and evil fucking Muslims and Jewish people and all of this stuff, Judaism, who they tortured people, killed people in the name of their God because God thought it was a good idea. No, it's all ego. They're worshiping themselves. They are the final authority, as we all are. We are the final authority. They'll tell you other lies like, "Oh, I'm not my own authority." Atheists, they're bad because they view themselves as the final authority. They are the gods, and they don't want any god above them. More virtue signaling language. Actually, these Christians are also the final authority in their lives. Otherwise, what is free will that they talk about so much? Right? If God is the final authority, it means they have no will. It's God who determines what they believe in and what they don't. But that's just a fucking lie. Because at the same time, they'll talk out the other side of their neck and say, "Oh, I chose God. I love God personally and genuinely." Yet they have doubts that he even exists. It's just the most asinine worldview in the world. And I invite anybody to come on and debate me about it. I'm in a debate mood today. Let's do it. Come on in, man. If you're out there and you think that what I'm saying has a logical problem with it, bring it. Let's talk about it. You know what I'm saying? But, they won't, because this is one of the things about them. They talk a big game and they try to use little mind tricks like this, well, if it wasn't for God, you wouldn't know anything. It's like begging the question arguments. Very unconvincing, you know. It's just ridiculous, man. I don't really know what to say. I wish these guys would have took me up on the debate because I wanted to talk about it, but I think they already knew they kind of I had a point. And I'm not saying that I'm the smartest guy in the world. I know because this is not very smart shit that I'm talking about. This is very common sense type shit. And I can be wrong about it, but right now I'm not convinced I am because it doesn't make any logical sense, right? It really doesn't. And whatever I'm saying right now it doesn't make me look real extra smart because I think everybody knows this to be the case, even Christians. That's why they doubt to begin with. And if they deny that they doubt, then they're lying again. They're fucking liars. Anybody who engages in these extreme views where whenever they say, I can't be wrong, I cannot be wrong, those motherfuckers are full of shit. They're full of shit. And they're prone to lie about just about anything and everything. I don't trust none of them. I really don't. They make absolutely no sense. To think that you have the infallible truth from God. So funny. You've got a book that they wholeheartedly think is infallible that says, find every man a liar. Find God true while you find every man a liar, something like this, right? Yet the Bible was written, pen to parchment by men. What sense does that make? So you're telling me that all men are liars except the ones that wrote the Bible? How do you know that? How do you know that they're not just lying to you and telling you that, oh, I'm getting my information from a God because I'm special. I'm a prophet. And you believe that shit? If you do, I've got some fucking sand to sell you. I've got a bridge to nowhere to sell you, man. I mean, it's really sad. And, uh, and I'm not saying that makes you especially a bad person. I'm not trying to make some moral judgment, but I will make a moral judgment when you judge me as a liar. I will turn it around on your ass When you try to come at me telling me what I believe, you don't know what the fuck I believe and I don't believe. You don't know that. You're not in my mind to know that shit. You're just taught that shit from the book of Romans. You know, let's pull the fucking scripture up and read it. This is where they get this bullshit from. You know, I forget. I know it's in Romans 1, I think it is. Suppressing the truth and unrighteousness and all that shit. That's yeah, Romans 1:18 through 32. It reads, "For the wrath," here I'll try to post it under here. Romans 1:18. Go ahead and put it up as a banner so you can know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. For what can be known about God is plain to them. Not plain to me. It's really not. It is not plain to anyone else. It's really not. Otherwise, why would they need to have these encouraging scriptures and apologetics? That's what apologists exist for. They exist so they don't feel stupid when they talk about their bullshit. It's really a disease that's been going on for thousands of years. And I just, I'm the kind of person, I just like to talk the truth. I like to call it as it is. And I'll tell them, I'm not convinced that you even believe what you're talking about, especially when they can't even argue their own points. They'll deny evolution is true and then don't even know if what evolution the theory is all about. They don't even know what evolution is and will tell you it's false. They're liars because they don't even know what it means. They don't even want to engage in it. That's why. They just want a virtue signal. They've got these huge egos and they want to win arguments on the internet on behalf of their adopted belief systems that they don't believe in. It's so obvious to me. And I wish somebody would come and we could talk about it, but I guess he's not going to actually come on and actually talk about it. I guess because I've got a point here. Here, I'll put the link in. Hold on. I'll put the damn link right here. You want to talk to me about some stuff? Is someone knocking at my door? Huh. Yeah, but Merry Christmas. Happy Kwanzaa. Happy Science Miss. And I'll tell you another thing. I am a cultural Christian. I was just at my folks' house observing Christmas, I guess, in a way. We all do. We get off work for the holidays. And I love that little argument too. Well, if you know Christianity is false, then why do you celebrate Christmas? Gotcha. It's because I'm an atheist. I don't give a fuck. What's God gonna? What's this What's this God I don't believe in gonna do to me? I'll just lay my cards on the table and tell you, yeah, I think it's bullshit, and I still celebrate the holidays. Does that make me a hypocrite? Maybe in your eyes, but I don't think so because I come out and admit it. I'm a cultural Christian, means I adopt all the cultures. I borrow from their worldview, if you like. But so what? Doesn't make your God true. Doesn't make any of that bullshit true. And I don't understand why you don't understand that when you do, because they are also cultural Christians. They just want to talk the talk along with it. It's all talk. They can't prove none of it. They can only prove it from the book. From the book. Okay? But that book is full of shit. It's not really a source of truth. Like when archaeologists look at the history, they don't use the Bible as a reference, do they? No. They use facts, archaeological facts, all kinds of different writings from different um, people of a certain period. Oh, but the Bible is true. It even talks about things that existed, like Rome, Egypt, other facts. So what? Who gives a fuck? So does Spider Man. Spider Man talks about New York City. Does that make Spider Man magazines true? No. See, I'm not smart to be telling you this shit. You already know all this shit, Christians. You already know. It's just that you don't like someone to come out and tell you, and I love to bring these things to your attention. I love to be part of the voice because if you look at the demographics these days, Christianity is going down. Church pews are emptying out. You know what I mean? Because they're getting wise to it. They're starting to understand, yeah, this fucking religion has me talking like an idiot. I sound like a fucking idiot in light of the facts. Not because they've learned any facts, by the way, because other people have. That's really what it is for a lot of Christians. It's that, well, other people are pretty educated about the world. So when I start talking this bullshit, they're going to figure me out that I sound stupid. And I don't want to sound stupid anymore. I would rather sound like an intelligent human being more than I'd like to virtue signal for this fucking stupid religious bullshit. But some people don't feel that way. Some people just don't give a shit. Some people would rather virtue signal, despite the evidence to the contrary. You know, it's so ridiculous. Now, you know, so for so often I've been talking to Christians, especially on this channel, about a host of other things like the existence. You know, how can we know that the Bible describes reality, or various topics. You know, epistemology, and it really isn't even that deep. To be quite honest with you, it's not even that deep. You know, that's why I don't really care to talk with these philosophical type people because they get bogged down in definitions and wordplay and semantics and stuff like that. Who's got time for that bullshit? In the real world, we don't have time to worry about shit like that. If you want to know whether it's dangerous to go into a fucking alley or not, you don't need some philosophical arguments and wordplay and definite. No, you just stay the fuck out of a place that you think is dangerous, right? Just use your common sense, man. Now, when it comes to some subjects like origins and stuff like that, yeah, they're real interesting, but a lot of these people act like it's the most important topic in the world. It's not. It's not. How the universe came to be, who gives a fuck? We don't know. Nobody knows. Until we know, who gives a fuck? The only people who should give a fuck are people who are experts in the field and who are getting paid a salary to figure the shit out. The only reason a person would give a fuck about the origins is if they were trying to somehow smuggle their little virtue signaling beliefs onto other people to sound good and look good. You know, they'll pick some scientist that espouses some view or some hypothesis that is in opposition to their faith beliefs. And then they'll go and attack that as, oh, they're having a war. It's a war on Christianity. The atheists are taking over. You know, if God wants to win the war, he could do it very simple. He could just like show up and talk to everybody. He doesn't need people like you to be his spokesman, right? Especially spokesmen who don't even believe in the motherfucker. That's my point. You guys don't even believe in God. You don't. You don't believe in this God, anyways. You believe in some higher power, I'm sure. I'm sure you do. Everybody has this psychological thing in the back of their head where they're sort of judging their own actions and judging themselves. It's called conscious. You have a conscience, you know, and you may have some grand, what do you call it, transcendent goal. Like when I die, you know, I want to be known as someone who left the world better than how I found it. That applies to every, you don't need religion for that. You don't need to believe in fairies and leprechauns and gods to believe in that shit. But they espouse it because it sounds good. It sounds good. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Well, it looks like the guy who said he was going to come over and talk to me about this shit tonight is not going to do it. I guess he kind of knows that he was full of shit. And he knows I know he was full of shit. And that's why he won't come on to even debate me. Had another guy in another chat group wanted to debate me on evolution, whether it was valid to even believe in evolution. He wouldn't debate me. Talked all this mad shit. Is that ego for me to want? Yeah, it kind of is. I like to fucking destroy their ego. It makes me feel better. But so what? Yeah, I engage in ego sometimes. But at the end of the day, if I want peace of mind, I know how to let that shit go. It really don't matter to me. It's kind of like playing chess. It's kind of like playing basketball. Do we want to win basketball and chess and all that because of ego? Sure. We want to be the winner in everything we do. We do. We want to win. But I know what we're talking about. I keep it within that frame of mind, and it doesn't affect, it doesn't cause me to lie. I'm not going to lie and say I'm the best fucking basketball player or the best fucking chess player in the world. I'm not. I suck at both of them terribly. You know what I'm saying? But what Christians do is they take their ego to push their religions and then lie constantly. And you catch them in their lies. And all they do is act confused, like they don't understand what you're saying. It's ridiculous. Anyways, that's pretty much it, man, because my guy's not going to show up and I'm not going to talk about this dumb shit all day to myself and to my audience, which I've got 0 people watching right now, anyways. But I'm sure some people will go back and review it, but whatever. But if you do, and you do want to confront me on this shit, please, please, let's set it up. Let's do it. I've been moderating some debates lately, like with Victor Vargas. I've debated Victor Vargas. Really cool guy. He's a Christian. I don't think he believes in what he's espousing. I don't think he believes it at all. He may say he believes it. I'm just not convinced because everything he says doesn't make sense. It's not adding up. He's getting better at his arguments, and I'm kind of proud of him for at least stepping up and trying to improve. But what I really like him to do is be honest with himself and everybody else and stop lying to himself and really just come to the point of saying, look, I don't know. I don't know whether this shit's true, but I want it to be true. Say that. Don't tell me you know some shit's true when you don't even know it's true. I can see that shit. I see through that shit. So take that shit to the kitty table, man. Back to the kitty table with your ass. Love you, man, but that's my honest opinion right now. Been there, done that. I used to be that gullible where I would actually believe in things like people rising from the dead, zombies walking around. stuff like that. I don't believe that shit. I'm not saying it's impossible necessarily. That's not the argument. The argument is I'm not convinced yet. It's like I would love the parapsychology to be true, like psychic abilities and shit like that. I would love it to be true that I could be telekinetic and make myself fly. I love that shit to be true. I'm not convinced it is because I've never seen it. I've never done it. It's not part of my experience. And I don't believe in shit that's not part of my experience unless it's a mundane sort of claim. You know what I mean? But, anyways, I don't think it's coming through. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this short. Review what I said. Anybody wants to drop comments below, do so. If you want to debate me on anything, talk about anything, however you want to do it, let me know, man. I'm right here. And until then, we're going to talk and we'll catch up later on. Peace.